Now I do have to mention Kafka. Totalitarianism is a cliche. Dictatorship is based on cliched thinking, on very tried and tested uniform stuff. They don't mind that they're boring. They don't mind that they're obvious. Their point is made. And I thought, now you're going to make me do it. Well, multiply that by as much as you can, and you have the following surmise. I went to North Korea, finally got in. Took me a long time, had to go under a second identity, had to pay a huge bribe. I was there, I got there. And I thought, I know what I'm not going to say about North Korea. I'm not going to say it. That school children are marched to school carrying pictures of the dear leader and the great leader. The loudspeakers speak of nothing but the great leader and the dear leader. At workplaces, there are sessions set apart every day for cries of hatred against the United States and the West and South Korea. I'm still not going to do it. They won't make me say 1984. They just won't make me do it. But eventually they make you do it. You have to, your mind just adjusts to it. The North Korean state was founded in 1950, 51. That's the year 1984 was published for the first time. You think, could it be that someone handed a Korean translation of this to Kim Il-sung and said, do you think we could make this fly? And he said, page through, said, I don't know, but we could sure give it the old college try, because that's what it looks as if they did. There is no private life for a North Korean. There isn't a moment when you are not either on parade or when you're not on parade told to stay indoors. You're not wanted, stay at home, you're under curfew. Lights are out in Pyongyang, and that's the capital city, at 8:30. Can't go out after that. Stay in. There's nothing to watch. There's nothing to see. All television programs, when it's working, are all about the dear leader, as are all operas, all films, all concert performances, and all public lectures. There's nothing else to talk about. The life of the human being, this is what I failed to convey in my article, is completely pointless. There's the concept of liberty or humor or irony or happiness or love doesn't exist. You are there simply as a prop for the state. And though it used to be, as with any slave system, that they would feed you in return for your services, that compact broke down a couple of decades ago. Now they don't feed you either. They barely clothe you. At Panmunjom, the so-called demilitarized zone, you've seen the word demilitarized zone, haven't you, in the press, even quite recently. Why do they call it demilitarized zone? Words lose their meaning so fast. It's the most militarized zone on the planet. There are nuclear mines sown in that DMZ. There's a concentration of force and violence on either side of it that is unequaled anywhere. It's the most militarized zone in the world. That's the only place where North Korean and South Korean soldiers meet directly, face to face, staring at each other across the table. They change guard about 5 or 6 times a day. The North Koreans naturally put up their best soldiers to stand there, to put the best, bravest, toughest face on North Korea. The best ones they can find are 6 inches shorter than the South Korean ones now. That's what a famine state is, on top of a slave state. We now have millions and millions of North Korean children totally stunted in mind and body, who will have to be dealt with at some point, who have been raised to believe that they live in a regime that is run by a god. And I must just indicate, but I was going to do this later, but I'll say it now. There's a thing that it took me ages to notice about reading George Orwell's 1984. I wrote a book about it. I've written many articles about it. It took me a long time to notice something that's so obvious that it's crying to be said. In 1984, it's assumed there's no more religion. There's no church in 1984, not even a tame state church. There's nothing. No one mentions the idea of faith, except in Big Brother. Quite interesting. It's as if it's an entirely secular dictatorship. In North Korea, you might think that was the case, since it has an officially communistic ideology, but it's not. It's the most religious state it's possible to imagine. It's actually two people who have been fused into one. Maybe this is reminding you of something. There's the Father, and there's the Son. It's one short of a trinity, Another way of phrasing it is this. When the president, our president, writes to Kim Jong-il, the son, the dear leader, he doesn't call him Dear Mr. President. He calls him Dear Mr. Secretary. You ever noticed that? Why is that? Because he's not the president of North Korea. He's the head of the Communist Party, the North Korean Workers' Party, and he's the head of the army. He's not head of the state. The head of the state is his father, who's been dead for 15 years. So it's a necrocracy, if you like. Or a mausolocracy, or a thanatocracy, in which the one has been fused into being with the other, and where both of them are said to have had miraculous births, attended by miraculous phenomena, such as, for example, birds singing in Korean when they were born. So that this is possibly the most theocratic country I've ever seen, or that there has ever been, where the only duty of the citizen, starving and stunted and enslaved, as he or she may be, is the worship of the leader and of the leader's father. I'm not quite sure how far I've trespassed on my time, and maybe someone would give me a wave. You have another 2 hours. You're so good. Well, I should say a few words about Iran, which is the one I've visited most recently, and which is maybe the one that's nearest the front of our minds. The Iranian people were converted to Islam not very much longer after the conquest of the Arab world by Islam, but they refused to adopt the Arabic language, and it's a great point of pride to them that Persian culture and the Persian language and Persian literature survived the conversion to Islam, and the conversion to Islam also was, for most of them, not the Sunni majority form, but the Shia one. So there's a great discrepancy between Iranian society and many other of what we think of as Arab Muslim states and systems. And there are many, many, many discrepant views within the Shia theology about what's the proper role of religion in society or in the state. Should it rule now? Should it claim to govern people in the here and now? Or should it wait until the Messiah, the 12th Imam, comes back, and would it only be then appropriate for religious rule to bring about a world of universal justice and vindication? This is a very live argument in Iran and among Iranians, and has been for a very long time. But since the advent of the Ayatollah Khomeini, sometimes called the Iranian Revolution of 1979, I would say myself the Iranian counter-revolution, since the entire people of Iran and every layer of Iranian society took to the streets to overthrow the Shah, only to find that their revolution had been taken from them and hijacked by a clerical caste, who then used violence against all those who had helped them to overthrow the Shah and imposed a dictatorship of their own. I believe that's better described as a counter-revolution than a revolution. It was a revolution anyway. But ideologically, the version of totalitarianism I'm talking about here has a religious name. Unlike Iraqi Baathism or Kim Il-sungism, it has a directly mainstream religious name. It's called the Velayat-i Faqih, the guardianship of the jurist or the cleric. Originally invented to say that orphans, children, mad people, lost people were to be looked after as wards of the state. Khomeini decided that this velayat should be extended to everybody. Everyone in Iran is now considered to be a child, with a paternal authority vested in the Guardian Council and the Supreme Leader. And